Hello. This is Thursday, February 15th, 2024. I'm Theodore Parker, and this is a sideshow. In this area of Kentucky, Lexington, the high today will be about 58 degrees. Presently, it's 47 and feels like 41. For the most part, it will be a sunny day with a few clouds, highs in the upper 50s and lows in the low 30s. Rain likely Friday afternoon, and 1 inch of snow accumulation expected over the next 48 hours. Today, sunrise was at 7:28 a.m. and sunset at 6:16 p.m. Notice we're getting a little more daylight. Already talking about daylight saving time changing. Anyway, the wind today will be around 11 miles per hour, and the AQI is good at 24. So if you're watching the sideshow on Facebook and Instagram, don't forget to like, comment, and share. Talk about it on WhatsApp. And if you're watching the sideshow on YouTube, like, comment, share, and subscribe. And of course, as I enjoy letting you know, the sideshow coffee cup, black 11-ounce ceramic, dishwasher safe. Good for all beverages, hot and cold. Buy it from me for $17 plus shipping and handling. Pay me through Cash App. Cash App tag is $TR Parker 1. Sideshow coffee cup. And February 2024, Black History Month continues. And since it's a leap year, we have 29 days to February, which I have already explained the reasons for that. So, I wanted to take a minute, as I say. I do take time to chat with people that are on the apps for Facebook Messenger, Instagram, WhatsApp, and it does keep me busy, to say the least. I'm kind of reluctant to jump up and say that the people that do this, your viewers, those that text in and want to be on this side of things as fans, because I just, celebrities have the money to prove that their friends have spent it to see them do what they do. So I'm not quite on that level yet, but still, a lot of interesting conversations take place nonetheless. So one of the things I wanted to address, especially in the way women greet me in their text messages, hi, handsome, and then just because I, for myself, personal reasons, like to know who I'm chatting with. Because as I've mentioned previously, for some odd reason, people like to go under different names, their choice, so like I say, I'm better with faces, than I am with names. After you come on various apps, Messenger, Instagram, and WhatsApp, although WhatsApp is identified by a phone number, international, all I can really do is remember your face, because there's such a list of names that I, don't even try to remember all the names that people have used as they drop by, stay for a while, and then go out and come back, etc., etc. But I will say this: once you have a spot, on pages that are connected to the sideshow, then that is your spot. I mean, you don't have to like occupy it every minute, say something like every day. We do have things about that we have to do in life, take care of our families, take care of ourselves, etc., etc. But because new people are coming on every day, then if you're not saying something every day, then you will just kind of go down the list, And then you come back and ask me, what have I been doing? How come I haven't said nothing? I'm like, you were the one that didn't say hi. So anyway, all that being said, the greetings that people use, to say hi to me, were different and varying. So it brought the question, how many ways can you say a man looks good? That was my question to Google. So I'm most familiar with telling a man that he's handsome. Well, you're a handsome man or whatever. And I was kind of like correcting people on saying that I was cute, In some instances I've had in my experience personally, someone say that a man is a beautiful man, but I kind of referenced that into like two categories, that the man was like patient and he was kind. So it kind of struck a different tune for me to hear something like, you're cute. And I said, well, excuse me, girls are cute, men are handsome. So it kind of went off from there. So in some instance, it might be that I'm, self-correcting, in a sense, a little bit of humble pie too, that you can say other things about the way a man looks besides just that he's handsome. So my Google search brought up other things that you can say. And it was a list, and cute was included. Cute was included. And so was beautiful. And a couple of other things too that I would not otherwise have thought were acceptable. So with all of that being said, I have to kind of adjust myself to modern times. I was being cautious because, people say things and you have to kind of be careful about what you allow into the conversation sometimes. So it all goes to state that I have to adjust myself. I guess a man can be cute, can be other things besides handsome. And it was a good little list of about 8 to 10 things. And it covered all of those complimentary things that you can say to a guy that that work well, So I'm making that adjustment. I wouldn't necessarily call it humble pie, but men cannot just be handsome. And I usually think about it in this sense that women, and this is not written in stone, concrete, etc., etc., beautiful, pretty, cute, because I like to give women compliments and at least start the conversation with an icebreaker that kind of rolls along in that category. So there we have it. Ways to talk about a man's look without necessarily using the word handsome. Dapper, I'm familiar with. Flamboyant a little bit, you know. So I'm adjusting, folks. I'm adjusting. Other ways to compliment of the way a man looks. Say, black man in the house. All right, back to the program. Black History Month continues. The news is showing an event that's happening at the White House. I can't remember the date right off. Because it just escapes me right at the moment. But the White House hosts historic gathering of descendants of Black civil rights leaders. And I wanted to share a few particulars about that because it's the first time that something like this has happened. So obviously, it's a standout moment for those descendants of civil rights leaders, and being for the White House to recognize the same. So this is fresh, 16 hours ago. At the White House on February 13th, Vice President Kamala Harris addressed the descendants of some of the most influential civil rights leaders who convened in the same room for the first time, according to NBC News. The gathering included families with legacies rooted in the struggles and triumphs of the 1950s and 60s, echoing the monumental contributions of their ancestors. Among the esteemed attendees were descendants of Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman, Booker T. Washington, Ida B. Wells, Malcolm X, Rosa Parks, Emmett Till, Thomas Jefferson, and Sally Hemings. This group, known as the Descendants, gathered to celebrate Black History Month and reflect on the enduring impact of their familial legacies. Harris lauded the group as extraordinary American heroes who embodied the nation's promise and the principles captured in the Constitution. They passed the baton to us, said Harris, acknowledging the weight of responsibility carried by the descendants to continue the fight for justice, equality, and civil rights. Following Harris, Stephen K. Benjamin, the director of the White House Office of Public Engagement, provided an overview of the administration's initiatives. This included updates on a recently signed executive order addressing police accountability and President Joe Biden's historic move to declare Juneteenth a federal holiday. The descendants, whose members actively coordinate behind the scenes, expressed their appreciation for the event and the significance of bringing these families together. Joshua Jordanson, one of the coordinators, said discussions about organizing the gathering began several years ago. We stand on the shoulders of those who came before us, said Kenneth B. Morris Jr., a descendant of Frederick Douglass and Anna Murray Douglass, adding that freedom's torch has been passed to us. While invitations were extended to other notable families, some couldn't attend due to scheduling constraints. And on that, I do agree, the generation before me, opened doors and in some cases knocked on them, in some cases kicked them open, so to speak. So I benefited. And my generation is doing things that the generation behind us can benefit from. So that's being acknowledged by the White House. So we just finished the Super Bowl. So an acknowledgement goes to the HBC band Usher brought to the Super Bowl halftime. You know, at Super Bowl is always a moment, and this Super Bowl 58 was no different. So acknowledgement goes to the band. And since I like to give things correctly, I will say this: Jackson State was the band, and they have performed at other Super Bowls and have been dutifully recognized for doing that. I have looked at so many articles, you have to kind of bear with me. I know we're not supposed to have white noise going on, just to find the exact one that I wanted to convey the information from. So, anyway, as I'm looking, like I said, the band is from Jackson State, and they have performed in other Super Bowl halftime shows. And the director sent a suitable note of thanks and appreciation to Usher and to the NFL for allowing them to perform. And that's how that went. Another one is Beyonce had a commercial in the halftime or during the NFL Super Bowl 58. And it had to do with two of her songs that she had released, Texas Hold'em and 16 Carriages. Well, these are, and if you notice at the Grammys, she did have one of Stetson that caught everybody's attention. So these two songs are in the country genre, and someone in Oklahoma requested to hear Texas Hold'em. And so the radio station replied that they don't do Beyonce music. So the fan took to Twitter, to talk about it and say, well, they must be racist and this and that, and they don't want to play Beyonce and all of that and so forth and so on. Well, here's a little more information to go along with the story. Yes, Beyonce did release two country songs, Texas Hold'em and 16 Carriages, but as far as radio play is concerned, they were not sent to country radio stations. They were released under like pop, went to iTunes and Apple Music as a pop song in the primary genre. So you would not be able to find them under country music. So that's one piece of information that will kind of clear up where you can locate the songs at. But, fans went to her defense and wanted to know why you couldn't hear it when it's country music, etc., etc. Well, there is the explanation. It was not sent to country music stations as such. And the band that performed during Usher's halftime show is, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? Warmly, loudly referred to as the Sonic Boom of the South from Jackson State University. Speaking of the South, Alabama has its own reputation. And in trying to change or update that information, this new Alabama museum let's do this first. The Black History, since this is Black History Month, we celebrate Mia Chaka, the first Black woman referee of the NFL. Give a word out for her. I want to do that before we quit talking about the Super Bowl and all the other things that go with that. So, Mia Chaka, the first Black woman referee of the NFL. Now, this one, like I was saying, the new Alabama Museum will honor one of the state's most gripping historical civil rights stories. So I'm going to share this one with you and hope you understand and appreciate. In March of 1931, 9 Black youth traveled on a Southern Railway train headed for Memphis, Tennessee. Crossing into Alabama, a vicious fight broke out between blacks and whites who had hopped the train. After decidedly on the less fortunate side of the excursion, the whites got off of the train and shortly after filed a complaint with authorities. Following the complaint, the local sheriff made an attempt to stop the train in Scottsboro, but narrowly missed the window to do so. Near Paint Rock, an armed posse of townsfolk forced the blacks from the train. Upon inspection, they found 2 women disguised as men, Victoria Price and Ruby Bates, and another male on the train. The women falsely claimed that they had been assaulted by the 9 black youth on board. Immediately, the youth were arrested, tied with plow line, and taken to the Scottsboro County Jail, where a lynch mob gathered. Charges are brought quickly despite evidence from the doctor's exam to prove the assaults had not occurred. Tensions rose to an impressive height in the city, and within less than 2 weeks of their arrest, the 9 known as the Scottsboro Boys, referring to the town where the original cases were heard, were tried and convicted. All were sentenced to die by electrocution on July 10, 1931, except the youngest, a boy of only 12 years old named Roy Wright, whose case concluded in a hung jury. Following the decision, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, NAACP, and the International Labor Defense came to the aid of the young men, which resulted in a ruling in the United States Supreme Court Powell versus Alabama that all defendants were entitled to adequate legal counsel during a capital felony. A change of venue was granted and moved the remaining trials taking place between 1933 and 1937, 50 miles away from Scottsboro to Decatur. A small city along the Tennessee River, Decatur boasted a population of roughly 16,000. In March of 1933, Hayward Patterson stood trial as the first of the boys before Circuit Judge James E. Horton. Alabama Attorney General Thomas Knight served as prosecutor, with funding from the ILD. High-profile New York lawyer Samuel Leibowitz served as lead attorney for the defendants. Leibowitz made the case that the boys could not receive a fair trial because others of their race had been systematically excluded from jury rolls. Leibowitz met with influential men within the Old Town community who provided him with several lists of black citizens whom they deemed qualified to serve as jurors. Men from both Jackson and Morgan counties were called in to testify. It was concluded by all, including jury commissioners, that no black citizen had served on the petit or grand jury. Judge Horton rejected the motion to squash. Leibowitz's argument went on to set the precedent for the second ruling of the United States Supreme Court, Norris versus Alabama, which included black citizens on jury rolls. Victoria Price made an appearance during the retrial and gave an emotionally charged testimony about the supposed encounter. While the evidence of innocence was overwhelming, Patterson was convicted once again. Judge Horton went on to set aside the verdict. 5 of the boys received nol pro, or a formal notice of abandonment by a plaintiff, the prosecutor, all of or part of a suit or action. 4 were released in order never to return to Alabama. The remaining Scottsboro boys saw prison sentences and were later paroled or released. In April of 2013, Governor Robert Bentley signed historic legislation exonerating the 9 Scottsboro boys and posthumously pardoning Haywood Patterson, Charlie Weems, and Andy Wright. Scottsboro Boys Civil Rights Museum, with an important and fascinating history to share, the Scottsboro Boys Civil Rights Museum in Decatur, Alabama, is designed. That's something new. I always thought about Georgia for Decatur. In Decatur, Alabama is designed to house, display, and depict Decatur's role in the historic trials of the Scottsboro Boys, while also reflecting the civil rights struggles, perseverance, and victories during that era. The project consists of 3 phases. Phase 1 includes renovation of the boarding house, where accuser Ruby Bates stayed during the Decatur trials. Phase 2 is the addition of a multi-million-dollar expansion adjacent to Phase 1. Phase 3 is the relocation of the home of Judge James E. Horton, presiding judge of the Scottsboro Boys trials, to Old Town Decatur in the museum area. The house will serve as a legal center, highlighting the heroism and courage of Judge Horton during the Scottsboro Boys trials, while offering various programs to enhance healthy community engagement and relations. So, a part of history that's being recognized and given value. And speaking, again, of so many events that are going on during Black History Month, I received an email around February 6th of events throughout the month that will be taking place at our local libraries here in Lexington, Kentucky. And it was events scheduled, throughout the month, not only for children, but also for adults during the daytime and evening hours. So I would presume that other cities are offering similar events that you might want to take advantage of. And, not to be like that, but most of the events did offer refreshments during the event for all ages. Speaking of history, I had found this one Well, I'll just put it in. Robert Smalls, an American hero. This was unusual to me because it's election times and it's coming from South Carolina. And Robert Smalls is given credit historically for having started the Republican Party, if not in whole, in South Carolina. And it was such an unusual thing that I kind of like wanted to share it. And the story goes that some of the things that he did, excuse me, he was commissioned to serve on a Southern warship. And as they were engaged in going to where they were going to do battle, differences of opinion broke out on the ship. Robert ended up taking over the ship from the captain. And I shouldn't be laughing, but it's humorous to me. He took the ship to a Union location, gave it to them, and then started fighting on the Union side with the ship. So, events occur and everything like that, and he kind of really makes his name for himself during the war. So where he was a slave at, if I'm not mistaken, the plantation, went into decay, and as the Unions came and started taking over portions of the South and property and things of this nature, everybody got dispersed except for the woman whose husband had the property. He had passed, whatever happened, killed in the war, and he ended up owning the property. Robert Smalls ended up owning the property. So she didn't have anywhere to go, and he ended up letting her stay there even though he owned it and ran it, which to me kind of is a big moment, because when you can step past your experiences, and move forward, to a level like that, it's just being like bigger than yourself, bigger than your experiences, right? And that's what he did in that particular instance or set of circumstances. So then he kind of pursued politics and things of that nature, and through various means established the Republican Party in South Carolina. And so he's considered to be a Civil War hero, a black political leader during Reconstruction, born in Beaufort, South Carolina, April 5th. And also a politician. Became the first black captain of a vessel in U.S. service. Robert Smalls. I also had talked to you a little bit about crypto, and it just so happens doors have been opened sufficiently enough where first black-owned stock exchange hopes to help people build wealth. Many in the United States share the American dream. Work hard, retire, and leave a legacy of generational wealth. But for many Americans, that dream is still unattainable. One of the largest roadblocks to wealth building is lack of access. And this hits marginalized communities the hardest. Joe Salila, founder and CEO of Dream Exchange, and his business partner, Dwan J. Kiles, wanted to change that. So they started the first Black-owned stock exchange. A stock exchange, according to Investopedia, is where financial instruments are traded, as well as where stock buyers connect with sellers. We help to form capital. We help people read the public markets, Salila said on News Nation Live Monday. We also regulate how the buying and selling of stocks is done every day. Excuse me. Dream Exchange began after Sela and Kyle saw a lot of the problems smaller, minority-owned businesses were having. It's a very difficult environment to raise capital if you're a small business, let alone a small minority-owned business, Sela told News Nation's Nicole Burley. A Federal Reserve survey showed that in 2022, about 40% of Black households and 28.3% of Hispanic ones had investments in stocks compared to 65.6% of white households. We didn't have a grandfather or aunt or uncle or mom and dad educating us on the markets because they didn't benefit from it because of historical discrimination in this country, said John Rogers, founder and co-CEO of Ariel Investments, in a 2020 Associated Press article. Black borrowers historically had restricted access to mortgages and affordable housing because of decades of redlining and other discriminatory practices, Raphael Bostic, president of the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta, said in the article. Less opportunity to build up wealth meant to a lower income and less money to invest after paying bills. But experts say having more investment by racial minorities in the stock market can help narrow this wealth gap. Salila says about 75 to 80% of people in Dream Exchange base are accredited Black investors, and it has a growing board of Black business people. We're truly a diversely staffed company, Salila said. It's a seat at the table. That being said, Dream Exchange's services are open to anybody, regardless of race. If you're a small company owner and you have a great idea, and you have to really have a great Rolodex of investors, or you really have to organically grow and be so profitable right away that you can't expand, that is a colorblind problem in our nation. It happens to be a bit more pronounced in the minority communities. So Salila said, Dream Exchange is here for everyone. If you have a good idea, you have an imaginative company, and you're doing well, we want to help you form the capital you need to expand your business and reach the public. Salila said, we want to bring prosperity to all communities in the country so that we have a stable story. Businesses. So those are a few things from Black History Month that not only we as Black people, African Americans, can appreciate, but as it is duly noted and continue to be said, Black people have done things not only to just benefit Black people, but to benefit people around the world. That's it. Hashtag.